This is 7th grade Geography of World Regions, Unit 1, Lesson 8. Here I am in Rubicon, and you can see this is quite a hefty lesson. We are talking about geographic perspectives, and there are 5 of them, so it's going to require us to do a little bit of extra duty here. So you have your resources here. We're going to take a look at the unit guide. Our lesson abstract for this, students are going to learn how to identify and apply geographic perspectives. They're going to assess how spatial they are and apply that to a crocodilian species map. They're going to learn how to create choropleth maps. In the ecological perspective, they're going to learn about population, population density, carrying capacity, by playing the game Oh Dear. And in the historical perspective, they are going to analyze change over time. In the civic perspective, they're going to learn how they can and should take an active role in the environment around them, analyzing some green inventions. In the economic perspective, they're going to learn about scarcity and participate in an activity that helps them understand what scarcity actually means. So this is using quite a few geographic skills. In our teacher's note, there are some things that you have to do to prepare for the Oh Dear game. The technology invention cards, you could easily make a few sets of those to be available in your classroom as, laminated sets. So when we start looking at this in Activity 1, we have our Geographic Perspectives PowerPoint. This PowerPoint is an overview of the 5 perspectives, and it just goes into small detail of what they are and then an example of them. That's going to move us into actually looking at each perspective. Activity 2 brings us to the spatial perspective, and in the spatial perspective we have a PowerPoint that guides you along with a spatial perspective quiz. This is not a test, it is just to help us learn and for kids to see how spatial they are and how they think spatially. So it asks a question and the students choose from 2 places. Then they have to justify or tell the rationale for why they chose that place. So for instance, it might say which of these places would be the best place for a Major League Baseball team, and it might have, Kansas City, and it might have, like Boise, Idaho. And then the kids are using, what do they already know? Their prior knowledge to decide which of those places would most likely have a Major League Baseball team. So that's where the rationale part comes in, so don't let them skip that part. And then that will lead into a class discussion of how we think spatially. What are those connections, those connecting pieces that we have inside of our prior knowledge that help us decide something about where something's located. All right, that's going to lead into the spatial distribution of the crocodilian species. This is a choropleth map that shows us all the different crocodile species live and the amounts of them that live there. So once you've spent some time researching and analyzing that and answering some questions about it, you can come into an extension activity where students are actually going to create their own choropleth map. So we've included some directions and an activity that actually walks the students through how to create a choropleth map, and it uses the playground. Students have all had an opportunity to play on the playground. Where are all the people, and then how does that turn into a choropleth map, and then actually extend that into creating their own choropleth map. And you can find all of that in the PowerPoint that guides you through those activities. And then for activity 4 with our ecological perspective, we're talking about population density, the carrying capacity. And so in this lesson, we kind of want them to just see that in action. So the Oh Dear game, that's a modification of the Project Wild Oh Dear game, where you actually assign kids roles. Some might be the prey, like the hunter, and then some are like the deer or the rabbits, and some might be the predators like the hunters and whatnot, or cars, and you get run over. So basically setting it up of different ways that you enter and exit the environment. And so the Oh Dear game will help the kids kind of understand the whole idea behind population density, the idea of carrying capacity, that if we get too many, we're not going to be able to have supplies, to carry them any longer. Okay, so that's a good little game. You will need to make your resources ahead of time, but all of those are supplied for you on Rubicon. And then you want to move into a carrying capacity activity called Food for Thought. And basically here what you have are about 10 to 15 different events that have taken place in time. And we want to decide whether or not those had an impact or have an impact on our carrying capacity. So, many scientists believe that the United States is fast approaching, or the world is fast approaching, its carrying capacity. And if so, are the events that are listed on this page things that are leading to that? That would really lend itself to a good class interactive discussion. All right. In activity 6, we have using the historic perspective, community change over time. And in this PowerPoint, it's going to guide you through visiting some Boston maps, a early 1700s and then a 2010 map. And students here are looking for changes. Those changes could be either human changes or they could be physical changes, things that physically happen by nature. And so we want kids to begin to recognize that. And that they're going to create a Venn diagram to show that. And then in activity 7, the civic perspective, this PowerPoint is going to guide you through understanding how human actions can impact the environment, both positively and negatively. We often hear of the negative and not as much as the positive, so we're going to kind of look at the positive side here, and that is looking at some green inventions. So 2 different activities built into one. First is the green chair, and that lends itself for a good interactive discussion between teacher and students, where you look at a chair and all the different parts are green pieces. What item are we, helping? How are we helping the environment by each of these pieces? And there's a chart that students can fill out using the infographic. And then the technology invention cards, again, you'll have to have these done ahead of time, and laminated would be best. Basically looking at 8 different inventions that are helping or where people are helping our environment. And then activity 8 is our economic perspective. And the thing that comes up the most when we talk about economic is having enough water to survive, and how do we make that happen all around the world, because that is an economic issue. And so we're going to guide students through understanding what scarcity is when we don't have enough water. And there's a really good activity that can either be done as a teacher demonstration, or if you're brave, you can set it up for students to actually participate in small groups, so where they're going to actually see what happens when you don't have enough water to go around. Okay, this is Geography of World Regions, Unit 1, Lesson 8 Overview.